Alright, back here to do my UFC 128 recap. Crazy night of fights, really. Was watching it via the online with Byron Giant, Chaz, a couple other people. I don't know your YouTube names off the top of my head. Anyways, onwards to the fights. We opened up with the Facebook card, which we caught the end of the Joe Benavidez Ian Loveland fight. I haven't seen enough of the comment. The fact that went to decision, though, kind of disappointing. For those of you who had not seen Ian Loveland before, Ian Loveland is just really not that good of a fighter, compared to the caliber of fighter we've seen Joe Benavidez go in there and kind of just seek and destroy. So a little disappointing that went to decision. We had Gleison Tibau versus Kurt Pellegrino. Not the greatest way to open up the night. This was just an ugly fight, and I expected it to be. Tibau, of course, known just to be the big guy with being able to power the double. Kurt Pellegrino, wrestler with lacking cardio. Stand-up's okay. For a black belt, his grappling is not particularly superior. Pellegrino, congratulations on becoming the first man to lose a third round to Gleison Tibau. That's terrible, because no one in the UFC has done that. Tibau was able to take Pellegrino down. Not at will, but he would get in there and he would eventually just kind of brute force it. Pellegrino won what stand-up there was, which is not surprising. Tibau's stand-up is quite poor. On the ground, neither really had anything, to be honest. Tibau's cardio looked better than usual, but his Wikipedia page claims cardio is his biggest strength, which I find just amusing because it's terrible. And it comes from the fact that he cuts so much weight. What's next for these two fighters? Honestly, Pellegrino, I don't care. He continues to disappoint me. Tibau, overrated because people talk about him just because of the size thing, but I don't know. Put him in there with... Let's go with Kamal Shalarus. I'm just going to throw that name in there to fight Gleison Tibau. Next up, in the second Facebook fight, we have Mike Pyle versus Ricardo Almeida. This is a bit of a, I don't know, it's a decision I don't particularly understand. Before I really condemn it, I might go back and watch the fight and try to look at it just from a judging view instead of as a fan. I picked Mike Pyle to win. He won the unanimous decision, but he got taken down quite easily in the second and third round by Ricardo Almeida, which was a bit weird because he did stuff him very well in the first round, gave him the first round. Particularly the guy who gave it 30-27 for Pyle. Give your head a shake, my friend, because that's some atrocious judge work. And that's all there is to say about that. Fight of two grapplers. Pyle won the stand-up portion, but Almeida took him down. Pyle had very little luck with anything from the bottom. It basically sums up the fight. On to the spike portion of the fights. Edson Mendez Barbosa Jr. beat Anthony Njokuani via unanimous decision. I was hoping for a finish in this one. It seemed Barbosa was a little bit nervous about Njokuani tagging him, I guess. He was a little bit hesitant to actually open up and do anything. That being said, landed greater percentage of the punches. Njokuani certainly threw more, but didn't really get much. The highlight, of course, being the hook kick at the end of the third round to the head of Njokuani that just kind of gave a nice punctuation to the fight. 28-29, Barbosa sounds about right. I gave Njokuani the second round. Not as many leg kicks as we thought. After watching him completely basically cripple Mike Lolo, we were hoping for more leg kicks, and we did not get them. And with Barbosa, I think maybe a bit of a mental block. I think he needs to open up a little bit more if he's to beat people in the future. Because Njokuani is a guy who threatens no kind of wrestling to go with his stand-up. If you had a guy who brings some wrestling and some stand-up to the table, I think that could be a problem. Next up was Louis Archer Kane versus Elliot Marshall. Very good performance by Kane, although it was against Marshall, who, I picked. After I made the pick, I completely regretted it. But it was one of my 3 losses on the night. Also lost Suncow and Pellegrino. What to say about this? Kane came out there and did his thing. He showed greatly superior stand-up to Elliot Marshall, which is not anything amazing. Marshall's wrestling is kind of lacking. He stuffed the takedowns pretty easy. Looked actually a lot like the Louis Kane versus Jason Lambert fight, where basically the same thing happened. Kane just stuffed takedowns and just broke the face, basically. Okay, then we got to look at the Eric Koch Coke versus Rafael Suncal fight. Not to take anything away from the Coke fight, it was a good showing for him and everything, but Suncal fought retarded. Not any attempt at a takedown from a guy whose stand-up is pretty bad. That was ugly. That being said, Coke comes out there, just greatly superior stand-up on speed and technical level. Suncal stand-up terrible. And eventually clipped him and put him down, put him out. Knockout of the night, I believe, or co-knockout of the night with Brendan Schaub. Who we're getting to now. On to the pay-per-view portion of the card. Brendan Schaub, Miracle Crow Cop. Crow Cop looked better than I thought he would. I thought Schaub would completely dominate him. But Crow Cop had some moments where in the clinch he managed to push Schaub up against the cage. Managed to land some good elbows in the clinch, which is a skill he had not really shown before. Busted up Schaub's nose. We had both guys getting warnings for, respectively, Crow Cop up kicking and Schaub hits the back of the head. Crow Cop, when it went to the ground, I'm very disappointed that his sprawl stopped Schaub just once. I mean, Crow Cop once had a legendary sprawl that is clearly not there anymore. Got taken down pretty much at will by Schaub. On the ground, Schaub really didn't do anything. He threw a lot of strikes, but nothing of significance landed. Very good ground and pound defense by Crow Cop. So, oddly, Crow Cop is developing skills that he didn't have before. It's just the skills that really paid the bills for him, so to speak, are really lacking. And that was at range stand-up in this fight. Schaub was able to block everything coming in, basically. Able to land pretty damn close to Will. I mean, he didn't. It's a little bit painful to see Crow Cop fight these days if you saw him fight in Pride, because it's just really not the same fighter. The attitude is just different. The aggressiveness is not really there. And, of course, the speed's not there. Probably the power's not there either, because, you know, you didn't used to see high kicks from Crow Cop just get blocked with an arm by Schaub. Well, not by Schaub, but by anyone. And we saw that. Nate Marquardt, Dan Miller, pretty much how I expected this to go, other than it was more ground-oriented, because Marquardt was actually taking Miller down, whereas I thought he would try and sprawl and brawl him. That being said, on the ground, Miller had a couple of close submissions, but nothing really that close. I mean, I think there was a guillotine attempt in the second round that was pretty close, but that was it. Miller, just not a good enough wrestler to take advantage of the Nate Marquardt gap, which is, if you put him on his back, he's just not very good, unless he can get up immediately. Saw that with Chael Sonnen, saw that with Yushin Okami. Admittedly, I have a hard time thinking of a third guy who can do it that easily. Maybe a Mark Munoz, although Munoz is quite slow. That's it. Marquardt moving up again to probably another number one contenders match. They will lose. Somehow. I haven't really been doing who to fight. Nothing really stands out, I guess. Schaub rematch with Big Country would be nice, because I've said it before, Schaub's attitude does kind of irk me. It comes off as pretty cocky. Understand being confident, talking up your skills and everything, but it just seems like he crosses this line. I can't really explain why that is, but like, other people can talk about their skills and they don't come as cocky to me. It's just a personal opinion. Take it for what it's worth. Jim Miller versus Kamal Shalorus. Now, this fight was pretty good, actually. Miller showing just the superior stand-up, although Shalorus landed more than I thought he would for a guy who basically just wings overhands. Shalorus, again, very good wrestler, very heavy hands. Put him in there with T-Bow, please. But in the end, his striking is just technically lacking, and his ground game is not particularly solid. When it went to the ground, Miller was able to control him, even from, whether it be from bottom or from top. He managed to take him down, got his back. Just Jim Miller is a chronically underrated fighter who gets fights that don't really advance him, unfortunately. Because this fight will probably do next to nothing for him because the casual fan doesn't really know Shallowers. Faber versus Eddie Wineland. Props to Eddie Wineland for fighting much, much better than I thought he would. He even suplexed Faber. He hung in there with Faber, but in the end, Faber just too much on kind of like the wrestling, basically, is all it was. I mean, his groundwork was good. But I don't know. When Faber went down to 135, I was expecting him to rip it up much more than he is. Something tells me perhaps the weight cut is not going that great. Maybe. Or he's not dealing with the increased speed of opponents. John Jones, Shogun Hua. This is the one people really want to hear talked about, I assume anyways. The main event of the evening for the 205 light heavyweight title. What to say about this fight? Shogun did not look particularly good, and that's kind of what I based my pick for Jones winning on. He looked like he gassed out, looked a little flabby, looked just kind of lacking that spring in his step, which I think that probably goes down to another knee injury again. Shogun never comes off the knee injury, he's terribly solid. That being said, Jones did incredibly well in this fight. He was able to take down Shogun at will. That's not too much. That's not really all that surprising. But his anti-jiu-jitsu, amazing. When Shogun went for the knee bar and things, just completely shut down. Just could not do anything on the ground. Which is weird for Shogun when you consider he's faced a lot of really good wrestlers and has been able to do some things against them. Jones is a scary prospect, just to be honest. Still have a lot of questions about him. I mean, his stand-up is still very unorthodox. It works for him, but it could get him caught. We don't really know what his chin is like. We don't really know how his ability to absorb leg kicks is because, honestly, Shogun threw, I think, one the whole fight. His ground game, however, I mean, he did nullify a very legitimate BJJ black belt in Shogun on the ground. In the end, finishing him off with, I believe they're going to say punches and knees. Shogun actually taps after the referee takes Jones away. Or, perhaps it's not a tap, perhaps it's an expression of frustration or something. But just a complete butt whooping. There's just really nothing to say about the fight in itself other than everything Shogun was supposed to bring to the table did not work in any way in this fight. Perhaps that's the injury, perhaps that's Shogun being subpar, or perhaps that really is John Jones being really the next big thing. That being said, the story about him meditating in a park and stopping a robbery was a bit much. Sometimes the UFC really just has to kind of calm down and really think about their hype. Anyways, got the Rashad Evans is going to fight Jones next. I'll break it down when it happens. That's going to be a long breakdown. But it's all for now. So peace and hope you enjoyed that card because it was a good night. Anyways, later.